arguably the most controversial player in the NBA, Ben Simmons. As a Sixers fan, watching him as a player really tears me apart. How good is he? How much better can he get? Does he even belong in Philadelphia? I will be answering these questions in this video. Hey YouTube, my name is Tyler and welcome back to The Athletic Nerd. The first question to answer is, how is Ben Simmons as a player now? Now, honestly, I think Ben Simmons is misconstrued, but still disappointing in this area. I think he truly has the skill, and he's developed a lot as a player. He's a great passer, he's a great finisher, and he's a great defender. He's improved his free throw shooting a little bit, but still has a long way to go there, and he also has a decent post game, especially with that hook shot of his. He's also started shooting short jumpers occasionally. People point to the three-pointer, but that really isn't an issue. The real issue is the fact that he only averages 10 shots a game and 5 free throws a game. He has admitted in the past on needing to develop his mentality, and it has really shown. He is a mismatch for nearly every defender in the NBA since he is 6'10", 240 pounds, while also being the fastest player on the court and having guard skills. Except he simply chooses not to take advantage of it. There has been times where he has flashed scoring instinct and ability, such as when he dropped over 40 points against Utah Jazz. But a lot of the game, he just stands around while either Embiid works in the post, Tobias Harris isos, or Danny Green or Seth Curry comes off of screens and shoots threes. This has caused him to have a very limited impact on offense, even given his skill set and strengths. As I said before, he is great on defense. He's a lockdown on the perimeter while providing a lot of value off ball while getting steals. Though I do wish that he was a better rim protector, especially given his size and frame, but he doesn't really do too much of that. If he did that, I think he would be the best defender in the NBA hands down, even though he already makes a good enough case already and may win Defensive Player of the Year this season. The next thing to tackle is, what can he become? I think this is very interesting. When he came into the NBA, he was compared to the likes of LeBron James and Magic Johnson. And after his rookie year, it seemed very attainable. He played like a tempo-pushing big guard/forward combo while also flashing a lot of skill as a passer. While it's very clear he won't become either of those guys at this point, he can still be on a Hall of Fame track, but I will get into that a lot more later in the video. And while that does seem ridiculous, he will make a lot of All-NBA defensive teams in the near future, and already is. And if he can develop a little bit more as a scorer, he can still make even more All-NBA teams. I think it's reasonable at this point that he will never really develop a jump shot. The sad part about it is that I think it's all mental. I think that even if he attempted threes at a reasonable rate, he could be mediocre to average by this point. But he hasn't. So it wouldn't be logical to see that ever become a part of his game. And a crazy part about it is that he's not even left-handed. He's naturally right-handed, but that forced him to be left-handed. And he takes most of his shots on the right side. He's just shooting on the right side of his face, which is usually something right-handers do. This may have limited him as a shooter as well and hindered his development as a player overall. He even does most of his everyday activities with his right hand. And people may point to guys like LeBron, but handedness is a spectrum. Even though LeBron does do things with his left hand, he does also do some things with his right hand. Ben Simmons essentially only thing he does with his left hand is shoot a basketball, and that has hurt him. So overall, I don't think he can develop too much more as a scorer besides developing more of a post game and some short jump shots, like he's already trying to implement a little bit more. But also he could develop a little bit more as a rim protector. But besides that, I think he's pretty capped out, especially since he's already been in the league for like 4 or 5 seasons. So it shouldn't be crazy to expect much more development out of him anyway. Another thing that we have to figure out is, how does he stack up with his peers? This is very hard to determine, simply because his combination of role and production makes it hard to quantify his true value and impact. I think positionally, it's fairly certain that he ranks behind Steph Curry, James Harden, Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard, and probably Chris Paul. I'm talking about as a point guard. After that, I could see him ranked ahead of or even just behind Trae Young and Russell Westbrook, but he's definitely in that tier of guys between 6 and 8. I might be biased, but I think Ben Simmons is a lot more versatile on both ends of the floor. And you could also say that he makes a larger impact because a lot of their offensive contributions can be just given up to empty stats and having a much larger role. Like Trae Young, he handles the ball all game for them, and Russell Westbrook also has an extremely high usage rate over his whole career. And you could say that the lack of defense on both of their parts may not be enough to overcome from. But like I said, they are pretty much interchangeable. I could see it either way. And in his draft class, which is another thing that most people like, especially now after the emergence of Brandon Ingram and Jaylen Brown in recent seasons, it's also difficult here. It's very clear that Ben Simmons is the best passer and defender. I think the argument is really between him and Brown, personally, because I just think Jaylen Brown and Ingram are in very similar roles, except that Jaylen Brown is much better on defense, even though Ingram is a little bit better of a passer. And at the moment, I think it really just comes down to what type of team and what type of skill set you want, since if you need even a guard or a forward, Ben Simmons is definitely the option, but if you need more of a scorer and a wing, you have to go Jaylen Brown, since Ben Simmons simply lacks that, but then at the same time, Jaylen Brown lacks those other areas a lot more. Similarly, when you expand this to his rookie class, not his draft class, which is the 2018, then the player comps are now to Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has been great this season. He expanded his arsenal offense some more while also being a very good playmaker. However, I think a lot of that has simply to do with Mike Conley playing better. And his defense is still very poor, and he's only 6'1". So I think that hurts him a lot. Jason Tatum is in the exact same boat as Jaylen Brown, where I think it entirely depends on what team and what type of player you're looking for. But even then, I could easily see Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum being better than Simmons, but at the same time, same thing with the guard position, they're all in the same tier as a player. One of the things most people, and one of the most debated things surrounding Ben Simmons is, should he stay in Philly? Before, this was a very serious topic, but I think at this point it's fairly certain. Yes, he should. Before, it was a question of whether or not he impaired Embiid or whether Embiid impaired him. But at this point, given the season Embiid has had and the way the Sixers have played this season, it's very clear that Joel Embiid can function without him. With him. Also, it'll be very hard to replace the value that Ben Simmons does have with another player, since he is under contract, and the only players I can see even remotely being on the trade market soon is somebody like Paul George if Kawhi Leonard leaves. But Paul George is not worth it, and there won't be another James Harden on the market anytime in the near future. So those are the only players that simply come to mind, so I think it's very certain that Ben Simmons will remain in Philadelphia. Now, what do I think is the dream scenario for Ben Simmons? While it may seem contradictory, I think the best case scenario for him individually is very far from Philadelphia. For one, he needs a rough coach. Like I said before, he does need to work on his mentality a lot, and he needs someone that holds him accountable and really pushes him. Doc Rivers and Brett Brown have both made it a point to just let him be and never make him uncomfortable. They don't want to step on his toes, and they just want to let Ben Simmons be Ben Simmons. But it is when you are uncomfortable that the most growth happens. And allowing Ben Simmons to be comfortable in most games, he simply just disappears. He needs somebody that's always on him and make sure that his presence is always felt, for one. And besides that, I just think he needs a larger role. As long as he is besides Joel Embiid, he will never be able to get the role he needs because they will always favor Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid is a very high usage player. And what role do I think he has? I think also a thing about Embiid is that the perfect fit, which I'm about to elaborate on, you cannot have a Joel Embiid type of player in there. And if you do, it's going to impair both players even more. Now, the larger role I think he has should be a hybrid of LeBron James, Magic Johnson, and Draymond Green. Now, The very reason why he can't be LeBron or Magic is simply because in the half court, he does not have the skill especially as a scorer, he does not have the skill to be a LeBron James type of player at all. Because he doesn't have a threat of a jump shot. And obviously, it's just hard to be Magic Johnson anyway. But in transition, especially when I mean by this hybrid of players, he will play for a very fast-paced team. Currently, Philadelphia, they are 12th in pace in the NBA. For Ben Simmons to truly be successful, he would need to be on an extremely high-paced team where they're constantly pushing the tempo, which will allow him to take advantage of his physical attributes in transition, both as a scorer and as a threat to set up players on the perimeter while teams are trying to rush back on defense. This effect would be even more amplified given his passing ability. And if he doesn't have the ball in transition, then he's a very good lob threat since he's faster than every player on the court and he's very athletic. Now, in the half court, this is where the Draymond Green comes in. He cannot be a LeBron James or Magic Johnson like I've said before. And he can't really function on ball besides getting in the post, which I think he should do more anyway. Especially if he is in the post, then he can do a lot of those mid-post hook shots and short jumpers when he needs to score. But Draymond Green, especially off ball and even on ball, means he would set a lot of screens. And he could be great there and working in a short pick and roll, which means that he might set a screen off ball. And then if they play the shooter, then he gets the ball and it's a 4-on-3. Given his intelligence and skills, it's like Draymond Green on steroids. And he'll always make the right play. It hides his weaknesses as a player, and he just makes an impact every time he's on the court. And on defense, I don't think he should have an Embiid, since he should play more like Ben Adebayo as like a small ball big sometimes. For him to have that role, he needs very specific teammates. He needs shooters, though. He still needs a big that can protect the rim and stretch the floor so they can space out the court. He also needs another versatile forward on defense like Robert Covington or Derrick Jones Jr. So that in those small ball situations or even just versus other teams, Ben Simmons can guard both wings and forwards, and he can also guard guards. But the main piece he would need to be successful is a guard that can play both on ball and off ball and serve as a very good playmaker. Look at guys like Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, or even Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If he had a guard, then he could play more like a forward most of the time, which I think suits his role more better anyway. And then, if in this hypothetical scenario, given Simmons this larger role and larger impact, if you adjust a few stat categories such as just the field goal attempts and free throws, like I said before, it's 15 shots a game and 8 free throws a game, which is very reasonable, by the way. To go along with his current efficiency, he will average over 20 points, still get between 8 and 10 assists, and 8 to 10 rebounds with 2 steals and a block a game. Like I said before, that's a truly great player. But then again, this probably will never happen. As a Sixers fan, I hope it doesn't. Because like I said before, the best scenario for the Sixers is Ben Simmons staying in Philadelphia. And also, if you want to see what I mean exactly when I say in this Draymond Green role, I will have some videos linked in the description that can explain it better than I can. Anyway, like I said, and that's a closed case. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you did. Let me know down in the comments what you think should happen to Ben Simmons and what the best scenario is for him. I'm probably biased, so it'll be interesting to hear other people's thoughts. I hope you have a great day, and peace!